heart, I knew that it was God. It was God in the form of Sister Frances Oliver.
Oh.
And that day she sealed my fate. In that one single act, I learned what my mission was to be. Always to take care of those who are smaller than you. What I'm going to share now is going to sound like a eulogy, but it's really not. Okay? So, in my life, taking care of small people smaller than me in lots of different ways, smaller in stature, smaller in thinking, smaller in practices. It's always been my dream and my goal to take care of those smaller than me. It's meant retreat work with young adults and teenagers through Search. Those of you in Orange County remember Search. Through Valiermo, St. Andrew's Abbey at Valiermo, where I did retreat work for teenagers, as well as preparing teams to do retreat work. And in the 70s, retreat work was very new, so preparing retreat teams to do that. It's led me to parish work, to youth ministry, to adult faith formation, to spiritual direction, both as a spiritual director and as a mentor in spiritual direction programs. It's led me to create environments for people when they go on pilgrimages to the Holy Land. I've been 13 times to the land of Jesus. I always wanted to see where the guy that I believed in so strongly, where he lived and worked and walked and died. Also to his mother's home, or places where she has had significance both in Lourdes and in Fatima. I haven't made it to Ireland yet. It's led me to justice education and collaboration, facilitating the Just Faith formation process, both for parishioners, and just ordinary Catholics and people who want to do something more with their lives, and also through the diaconate program, as Kathleen mentioned. That program leads one to immersion experiences. We call them border crossings. And oftentimes people want to know do they have to have a passport to take these border crossings. And they don't have to take the kind of passport we often think of, but oftentimes you do need that openness of your heart to go to places you've never been before, to see things that you've never seen before, sometimes to places where you never wanted to go before. We've been to the slums of Fullerton. I don't know if anybody knew there were slums in Fullerton. This led us to the Catholic Worker and Saturday Soup Kitchens, one of which was at St. Columban's, where Bree showed us there. It's led us to ecological sites. I've been led in my life to witness marches, not protests, witness marches for the rights of hotel workers, for the rights of farm workers. I've been helping to provide Thanksgiving meals and organize and participate in adoptive family programs for families who are in need of some kind of gift giving or gift receiving for their children for Christmas. I've organized street retreats, totally fun. I've ministered in prisons and also practiced the Stations of the Cross through our civic organization here in Orange County. As you know from, I'm sure, Sister's marvelous presentation this morning, and because of the way that you live, charism is an extraordinary grace. It's an extraordinary grace. And is given to people by God. We don't get to create it. We only get to receive it and to act out of it. But a charism is always given for the good of others, never for the person who has it. It's always the reaching out. I learned what grace I had been given for the good of others from you. I learned that the love of Christ urges us on, from Ireland to Australia to England to Scotland to the United States to Australia to Nigeria, Zambia, and Venezuela. From Garden Grove to Culver City to East Los Angeles to Hollywood, from South Central Los Angeles to Long Beach to San Clemente, and now from Mission Viejo to Santa Ana, and maybe even back to Garden Grove. I learned that the love of Christ urges us on from individualism to service of the poor. In 1969, I was given an apron and a key. That told me my life was not about me. To quote Mary Aikenhead, The Sisters of Charity are not to gain heaven without suffering with and for the poor. I learned that the love of Christ urges us on from dissonance to solidarity with. In an economy in the United States that is currently serving the richest 1% of its citizens, I have felt the pain of doubting my own self-worth through things that come with layoffs and foreclosures all around me. I've sat at a desk and taken phone calls from Connie, who had just been ousted from her home, wondering where she could get a shower because this is the first time she'd ever lived on the streets. And I've rejoiced with Frank, who had just secured a job after 2 years of unemployment. He was pretty happy that day. I learned that the love of Christ urges us on from indifference to compassion. I've been very moved in my life from not caring if the word he is used for God. I didn't care if we called God he. After all, we all know that God is not male. Moved to being concerned about the number of Catholic women who end up leaving the church so they can live out their charism of service through ordination. Mm-hmm. I've learned that the love of Christ urges us on from being self-fulfilled to finding fulfillment in mission. I've been empowered by you, women of faith. In convent life, right out into the world. East LA changed my life forever. Thanks, Edith. I learned there that the poor come first, and the rules follow. I don't know if I can say this in public, but I will. We broke a few rules while we were there.
Thank God.
I learned there that there was stuff I could do. that I had a role in all this. That there was something specific that God was calling Joyce to, not just something out in the air, not just some nice ideals, but something very concretely that I could do. Even if it was just to walk through the LA farmers market and beg for food that we could give the kids. Powerful experience. So for me, this is what living out my charism comes down to. And most of it comes, as I was reflecting on this and writing this up for you, I have to tell you that most of this comes, that I'm going to share with you right now, comes from Mary Aikenhead. And I've been gone from the convent for 40 years.
Is it 40?
And it is 40. And there's still a lot of life that is in me that comes from her.
Wow.
40. As expressed through you. You who are daughters and sisters and companions and partners, you've had an incredible influence in my formation. So here's how I try to live out the charism. To build, create, and live in mutually beneficial relationships. To build, create, and live in mutually beneficial relationships. To be joyful in my response to the need of the most vulnerable. I think I got that from your website, actually. To be joyful in my response to the need of the most vulnerable whenever it is in my power to do that, no matter who, where, or how. To trust in divine providence that the circumstances of my life, no matter how joyful or painful, ultimately reside in the heart of God, who sees me as a partner in something incredibly beautiful and something pretty big. Who has time to die? As I conclude this little piece of this, I have some very specific thank yous that I want to give to some very specific individuals, Sisters of Charity, which is not to say that I've not learned from all of you. Every person I've lived with and every person that I've worked with. Some of my thanks go to women whom I trust are sitting in this room, and some of whom now live fully in the presence of God. I want to thank Breed Honan, whose love urged me ever deeper into the world, even though I didn't understand it at the time. Sister Edith, who taught me about faith sharing and sharing faith. Edith taught me about being faithful. Kathleen and Marcia, whom I shared novitiate time with, which was a kick, as you might imagine. They showed me what it means to be fun and prayerful at the same time. Mary Magdalene and John Fisher, who taught me that my life was not about me. I can't tell you how many times I got pulled into John Fisher's office. Joyce, this isn't about you. To Bridget McGuigan, who in the 4th grade saw something in me that I was totally unaware of and kind of sent me out even then. And to Sister Frances Oliver, who picked me up when I was down. A final word from Margaret Mead. It's your witness to me, and I trust that it's your witness to the world. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, says Margaret, and I say to you, it's the only thing that ever happened.